The silent rescuer. The impact rattled Marcus's teeth as his research vessel slammed into the crystalline surface of Lunara 9. Warning lights bathed the cockpit in crimson as he fought the controls, managing to level out just enough to slide rather than plummet. The ship carved a glittering trench through the moon's surface before grinding to a halt. Systems critical. Hull integrity compromised. The ship's AI announced with remarkable calm for a machine reporting its own demise. Marcus unbuckled himself, wincing at the pain shooting through his ribs. The viewport revealed an alien landscape of towering crystal formations that caught the light of a massive ringed planet hanging in the starlit sky. Beautiful but utterly deadly without proper gear. He checked his oxygen reserves, less than 6 hours. The distress beacon was operational, but help from the nearest human outpost would take days. Marcus closed his eyes, calculating his odds of survival with the clinical detachment of a veteran space researcher. That's when he felt it, a gentle pressure against his mind, like fingers lightly touching a window pane. Human. You are injured. The thought wasn't his own. It arrived fully formed, carrying with it a sense of cool curiosity. Marcus's eyes snapped open. Standing outside his shattered viewport was a figure, tall and slender. Her skin had a pearlescent quality that shifted colors in the crystalline light, predominantly lavender with hints of silver. Where a human would have had hair, delicate filaments moved gently despite the lack of breeze. Her eyes were large, pupilless, and a deep indigo that seemed to shimmer with inner light. I am Naevia, researcher of xenobiology. Your vessel is damaged beyond repair. You require assistance. Marcus tried speaking, but a fit of coughing overtook him as the cabin air grew increasingly toxic. The alien, Naevia, tilted her head, studying him with scientific interest. Then with graceful movements she approached the emergency hatch, her long fingers tracing the airlock mechanism with surprising familiarity. Within minutes, she had helped Marcus into an environmental suit and guided him from the wreckage. As they walked across the crystalline terrain, he noticed she made no sound. No footfalls, no breathing, no vocal communication. Every instruction came as a direct thought, precise and emotionless. Thank you, Marcus said aloud, his voice sounding strange after the telepathic exchange. I'm Marcus Chen, human researcher from Earth Colony Tau Ceti. Naevia's expression didn't change, but he felt her acknowledgement brush against his consciousness. Your verbal communication is inefficient but fascinating. We have studied your transmissions. We know of humans. They approached a structure that seemed to grow organically from the crystalline ground. A graceful spire with interconnected chambers visible through translucent walls. This is our research outpost. You will recover here while we assess your situation. Inside, other aliens like Naevia moved about with silent efficiency. Their telepathic communications created a background hum in Marcus's mind, like distant conversations he couldn't quite hear. Naevia led him to a chamber where she indicated he could remove his helmet. The air was breathable but had a sweet metallic quality. I will be your designated contact. Your physiology is similar to specimens we have studied. I will ensure your biological needs are met. Marcus smiled despite his situation. Glad to hear I'm not the first human you've seen. Naevia stared at his mouth as it moved, her head tilting slightly. We have never hosted a living human. Only studied transmissions and biological samples. She continued watching his face with undisguised interest as he spoke, and Marcus realized she was fascinated by the movement of his lips and the expressions that crossed his face. Rest now. Tomorrow we begin repairs and research. As she turned to leave, Marcus noticed something unusual, a slight color change across her cheeks, a deeper violet that hadn't been there before. He wondered as exhaustion overtook him, what other surprises this silent world might hold. Unspoken curiosity. Days on Lunara 9 passed differently than on Earth. Longer, filled with the strange blue-violet light of the gas giant that dominated the sky. Marcus had settled into a routine at the research outpost, working alongside Naevia to salvage parts from his crashed vessel. The primary power coupling is fried, Marcus muttered, holding up the blackened component. We'll need to fabricate a replacement. Naevia observed him with that now familiar tilt of her head. After nearly 2 weeks, Marcus had grown accustomed to her silent presence and the gentle touch of her thoughts against his consciousness. Your verbal expressions continue even when unnecessary. Is this compulsive behavior? Marcus laughed, a sound that caused Naevia to step back slightly. her filaments rippling with what he had come to recognize as surprise. "Sorry," he said, his smile lingering. "It's just habit. Humans talk to themselves when they're working through problems. This sound, this laughter, it indicates amusement? Yes, or happiness. Sometimes relief." He set down his tools and faced her fully. "Do your people have anything similar?" Nevia considered this, her luminous eyes unblinking. "We share pleasure through collective thought resonance, but we produce no external manifestations." As she spoke directly into his mind, Marcus noticed how her features remained nearly motionless. Only subtle shifts in her pearlescent skin color betrayed any emotion, violet deepening when curious, fading to pale lavender when calm. "It must be very peaceful," Marcus suggested, "having no miscommunications." "It is efficient," Naevia responded, but there was something new in her telepathic touch, a questioning ripple that hadn't been there before. From across the laboratory, another alien approached. Theron was Naevia's superior, distinguishable by the intricate patterns etched into his skin. His telepathic presence felt colder, more clinical than Naevia's. "The Council requires progress reports on the repair efforts," Theron projected, his thoughts precisely measured. "And on your observational studies, Naevia." Marcus noted how Naevia's skin paled slightly in Theron's presence. "The human's technology is primitive but resilient," she replied. "Most damaged components can be adapted with our materials." Theron's attention shifted to Marcus, and he felt the alien's thoughts probe more deeply than Naevia's ever had. An uncomfortable sensation like fingers rifling through papers. "Remember protocol, Naevia. Observation only. Minimal interaction to prevent emotional contamination." After Theron departed, a silence fell between them. Not just vocal silence, but telepathic as well. Naevia had withdrawn her mental presence, something she hadn't done since their first meeting. "Emotional contamination?" Marcus finally asked. "What does that mean?" Naevia's filaments stilled. "My species evolved to control emotional responses. We believe they interfere with rational thought. Your kind embraces them. Not always by choice," Marcus smiled. "But emotions give life meaning. Purpose gives life meaning." Naevia countered, but Marcus noticed her gaze had dropped to his mouth again, watching as his smile formed and faded. That evening, the inhabitants gathered in the central chamber for what Marcus gathered was a celebration of the moon's perfect alignment with its planet. Crystal formations throughout the structure resonated with harmonics that vibrated pleasantly in his mind. Standing apart from the silent congregation, Marcus watched as Naevia approached, carrying a vessel of luminescent liquid. "This is ceremonial essence," she explained. "It enhances telepathic reception." Marcus accepted the drink cautiously. "Will it affect me differently?" "Unknown," Naevia admitted, and Marcus was surprised to detect something almost like eagerness in her thoughts. "But I would value observing your response." The liquid tasted of starlight and distant memories. As it spread warmth through him, Marcus became aware of the telepathic field around him intensifying, whispers of thought from every being in the room brushing against his consciousness. And strongest among them was Naevia's presence, no longer the cool, clinical touch he'd grown accustomed to, but something warmer, more curious, almost yearning. "Your thoughts feel different," he murmured. The violet blush deepened across her cheeks. "The essence reveals true thought patterns beneath conscious control. And what are you truly thinking, Naevia?" She stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his face with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "I wonder what it would be like." What would be like?" Marcus asked, voice dropping to a whisper. But before she could answer, Theron's sharp telepathic command cut through the haze. "Naevia, remember yourself." She withdrew immediately, both physically and mentally, leaving Marcus alone with the strange resonance of the crystals and the lingering warmth of a question left unasked. The first touch. The repair work on Marcus's ship progressed steadily. What had initially seemed an impossible task was becoming achievable through the combination of human ingenuity and alien technology. But as the possibility of departure grew closer, Marcus found himself increasingly reluctant to leave. The source of this reluctance was currently bent over a crystalline console, her delicate fingers manipulating energy flows with practiced precision. Naevia had been more distant since the ceremonial gathering, maintaining a professional telepathic connection that lacked the warmth Marcus had briefly experienced. The navigation system should be operational now, he announced, closing an access panel. We just need to calibrate it to recognize local star patterns. Your adaptability is remarkable, Navia observed. Most species resist change. Humans are stubborn but flexible when we need to be. He smiled. Speaking of which, I've been trying to learn more of your telepathic communication. It seems only fair since you've been studying me. Nevia's filaments rippled in what Marcus had come to interpret as surprise. You wish to learn our ways? I've noticed patterns, Marcus explained. The intensity changes with emotion, even though you try to control it. And sometimes there are colors, I guess you'd call them, textures to the thoughts. The violet blush that Marcus found so captivating spread across Nevia's cheeks. This should not be possible. Humans are not telepathically receptive. Maybe I'm learning, he suggested, or maybe you're projecting more strongly than you realize. They worked in silence for a while, but Marcus was acutely aware of Naivia stealing glances at him when she thought he wouldn't notice. Her attention frequently lingered on his face, particularly his mouth. As the artificial light cycle dimmed to simulate evening, Marcus stretched and yawned widely, an action that immediately captured Navia's complete attention. Sorry, he said, catching her staring.
Just tired. Your facial movements are
extensive, she observed, approaching closer than she usually allowed herself, particularly around your mouth region. Marcus couldn't help but grin. You've been watching my lips a lot, you know. The violet blush intensified dramatically. Is it inappropriate? I can cease observation. It's not inappropriate, just... Marcus paused, suddenly aware of how close she was standing. People might get the wrong idea back where I'm from. What idea would they get? Naivia's telepathic voice had taken on that warmer quality again, the one he'd felt during the ceremony. Marcus felt his own face growing warm. Well, when someone stares at your lips, it sometimes means they're thinking about kissing you. Kissing. The concept floated between them, curious and tentative. This is the pressing together of mouths. We have observed this in human transmissions but did not understand its purpose. It's a form of affection, Marcus explained. A way to express feelings without words. Without words or thoughts? Navia's confusion was palpable. How can meaning transfer without communication? It's not about transferring information. It's about sharing emotion, connection. Navia's eyes widened. Physical contact to stimulate emotional response. This is why it is forbidden among my people. Forbidden? Marcus asked. You never touch each other? Minimal contact only when necessary. Direct touch amplifies telepathic connection. It can overwhelm rational thought processes with emotion. Marcus considered this revelation. So your people avoid touch because they're afraid of feeling too much? Not afraid, Navia corrected, but her telepathic tone wavered. Cautious. Emotions led to conflict in our ancient past. We evolved beyond them, but you still have them, Marcus observed gently. I can feel them in your thoughts sometimes. Naivia stood very still, her luminous eyes fixed on him. Since your arrival, my thought patterns have become irregular. When you speak, when you smile, I experience disruptions. Good disruptions or bad disruptions? Marcus asked softly. Unknown, she admitted, but compelling. I find myself wanting to understand. The silence between them hummed with unspoken possibility. Marcus could feel the tentative brush of her curiosity against his mind, stronger than before. Are you asking what I think you're asking? He whispered. Navia's skin glowed with that beautiful violet blush. I wish to understand this kissing for research purposes. For research, Marcus repeated, unable to suppress a smile. It's usually something that happens between people who care about each other. Do you care for me, Marcus Chen? The directness of her question caught him off guard. Yes, I do. Then would you demonstrate? I want to know what it feels like. Marcus stepped closer, his heart racing. It might overwhelm you. If what you said about touch is true, I am prepared for the risk, she replied, and he could feel her nervousness and anticipation mingling with his own. Slowly, giving her every chance to retreat, Marcus raised his hand and gently brushed his fingers against her cheek. Naivia gasped. A small sound that was the first vocalization he had ever heard from her. Her skin was smooth and warm beneath his touch, vibrating slightly with what felt like contained energy. This is intense, she projected, but she didn't pull away. Encouraged, Marcus leaned forward, pausing when their faces were inches apart. Are you sure? In answer, Naevia closed the distance herself, pressing her lips tentatively against his. The moment their lips touched, Marcus felt a surge of something electric flow between them. Naevia's telepathic presence expanded dramatically, enveloping his consciousness in a kaleidoscope of sensation and emotion. He could feel her wonder, her fear, her curiosity, and beneath it all a growing warmth that mirrored his own feelings. When they finally separated, Naevia was trembling. A single droplet like liquid starlight traced down her cheek. "I understand now," she whispered in his mind. "This is why they fear emotion." "It is that overwhelming. Too much?" Marcus asked gently. Naevia touched her lips with trembling fingers. "No. Not enough." Forbidden feelings, the Research Outpost's atmosphere had changed subtly but unmistakably in the days following what Marcus had come to think of as the kiss. The other researchers gave him a wider berth, their telepathic communications becoming muted whenever he entered a room. Only Naevia remained close, though even she maintained a careful physical distance in public. But, in private moments working late on ship repairs or walking, among the crystal formations under the ringed planet's glow, something new blossomed between them. Naevia's telepathic presence had transformed, growing richer and more expressive with each passing day. "Your emotions have altered my perception," she confessed as they sat together in a secluded alcove of the crystal gardens. "I see everything differently now." Marcus watched as she manipulated a small crystal between her fingers, causing it to pulse with soft light that matched the rhythm of her thoughts. "Is that a good thing?" "It is complicated." The crystal's light flickered uncertainly. "These sensations are not permitted in our society. We are taught from emergence that emotional indulgence leads to chaos." "And what do you believe?" Marcus asked gently. Naevia's gaze met his, her large indigo eyes reflecting the crystal's light. "I believe I was incomplete before knowing you." The admission hung between them, powerful in its simplicity. Marcus reached across the space separating them, his fingers brushing against hers. The now familiar surge of connection flowed between them, and he felt her silent gasp in his mind. "I feel the same," he whispered. The moment shattered as a sharp telepathic command cut through their shared consciousness. "Researcher Naevia, report to the council chamber immediately." Theron stood at the garden's entrance, his normally smooth features set in rigid lines. The patterns on his skin pulsed with what Marcus had learned to recognize as disapproval. The human should return to his quarters, Theron added, his mental voice cold and precise. Naevia's fingers slipped from Marcus's grasp, but her thoughts remained entwined with his. "Do not worry. I will resolve this." As she followed Theron, Marcus felt a growing unease. The connection between them stretched thin but didn't break, allowing him to sense her anxiety as she faced the council. In his quarters, Marcus paced restlessly, feeling echoes of Naevia's distress. The connection they shared had grown stronger than either had anticipated, binding them across distance in ways that defied explanation. Hours passed before his door slid open, revealing Naevia. Her normally luminescent skin had dimmed to a pale, ashen color that alarmed Marcus immediately. "What happened?" he asked, stepping toward her. Naevia remained just beyond his reach. "The council has reviewed Theron's observations. They believe I have been contaminated by exposure to your emotions." "Contaminated?" Marcus repeated, anger rising. "That's absurd." "They are not entirely incorrect," Naevia responded, a strange resignation coloring her thoughts. "My neural patterns show significant deviation from our norms. I am experiencing feelings that have been bred out of our species for generations." "That doesn't make them wrong," Marcus insisted. "It makes them natural." "Natural does not mean beneficial." Her filaments lay flat against her head, a sign of distress. "The council has decreed that contact between us must end. Your ship repairs will be expedited, and you will depart within 2 planetary rotations." Marcus felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath him. 2 days? That's not enough time to properly test the systems. Part 4, Forbidden Feelings. The research outpost's atmosphere had changed subtly but unmistakably in the days following what Marcus had come to think of as the kiss. The other researchers gave him a wider berth, their telepathic communications becoming muted whenever he entered a room. Only Naevia remained close, though even she maintained a careful physical distance in public. But in private moments, working late on ship repairs or walking among the crystal formations under the ringed planet's glow, something new blossomed between them. Naevia's telepathic presence had transformed, growing richer and more expressive with each passing day. "Your emotions have altered my perception," she confessed as they sat together in a secluded alcove of the crystal gardens. "I see everything differently now." Marcus watched as she manipulated a small crystal between her fingers, causing it to pulse with soft light that matched the rhythm of her thoughts. "Is that a good thing?" "It is complicated." The crystal's light flickered uncertainly. "These sensations are not permitted in our society. We are taught from emergence that emotional indulgence leads to chaos." "And what do you believe?" Marcus asked gently. Naevia's gaze met his, her large indigo eyes reflecting the crystal's light. "I believe I was incomplete before knowing you." The admission hung between them, powerful in its simplicity. Marcus reached across the space separating them, his fingers brushing against hers. The now familiar surge of connection flowed between them, and he felt her silent gasp in his mind. "I feel the same," he whispered. The moment shattered as a sharp telepathic command cut through their shared consciousness. "Researcher Naevia, report to the council chamber immediately." Theron stood at the garden's entrance, his normally smooth features set in rigid lines. The patterns on his skin pulsed with what Marcus had learned to recognize as disapproval. "The human should return to his quarters," Theron added, his mental voice cold and precise. Naevia's fingers slipped from Marcus's grasp, but her thoughts remained entwined with his. "Do not worry, I will resolve this." As she followed Theron, Marcus felt a growing unease. The connection between them stretched thin but didn't break, allowing him to sense her anxiety as she faced the council. In his quarters, Marcus paced restlessly, feeling echoes of Naevia's distress. The connection they shared had grown stronger than either had anticipated, binding them across distance in ways that defied explanation. Hours passed before his door slid open, revealing Naevia. Her normally luminescent skin had dimmed to a pale ashen color that alarmed Marcus immediately. "What happened?" he asked, stepping toward her. Naevia remained just beyond his reach. "The council has reviewed Theron's observations. They believe I have been contaminated by exposure to your emotions." "Contaminated?" Marcus repeated, anger rising. "That's absurd." "They are not entirely incorrect," Naevia responded, a strange resignation coloring her thoughts. "My neural patterns show significant deviation from our norms. I am experiencing feelings that have been bred out of our species for generations." "That doesn't make them wrong," Marcus insisted. "It makes them natural." "Natural does not mean beneficial." Her filaments lay flat against her head, a sign of distress. "The council has decreed that contact between us must end. Your ship repairs will be expedited, and you will depart within 2 planetary rotations." Marcus felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath him. 2 days? That's not enough time to properly test the systems. The decision is final. Naevia's thoughts were becoming more guarded, withdrawing from him. "They believe your continued presence threatens our social harmony." "And what do you believe?" Marcus challenged, stepping closer until barely a breath separated them. "Tell me what you want, not what they've decided." For a moment, Naevia remained silent, her telepathic presence so faint he could barely detect it. Then, with a sudden surge of emotion that nearly overwhelmed him, her thoughts burst forth. "I want to keep feeling. I want to understand these sensations that have awakened in me. I want—" She broke off, her composure fracturing visibly as the violet blush spread across her face and neck. "Say it," Marcus whispered. "Please." "I want you," she finally admitted, the thought carrying such intensity that Marcus gasped. "But wanting is dangerous. Our history is filled with the destruction caused by unchecked desire." "Not all desire leads to destruction," Marcus said, carefully raising his hand to her face, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he gently traced the curve of her cheek. "Sometimes it leads to creation, to understanding, to love." Love. The concept flowed between them, complex and frightening and beautiful. "Is that what this is?" "I think it could be," he answered honestly, "if we had time to find out." Naevia closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "We have tonight." The words carried both promise and sorrow. Marcus drew her closer, their foreheads touching as their minds intertwined more deeply than before. In that connection, words became unnecessary, human emotion and alien thought merging into something entirely new. As the artificial night cycle deepened around them, they explored this newfound intimacy, each touch bringing greater understanding. Naevia's telepathic abilities allowed Marcus to experience her perspective, while his emotional openness taught her what it meant to truly feel. In the quiet hours before dawn, as they lay entwined in the soft bioluminescent glow of Naevia's quarters, she traced patterns on his skin that mimicked the markings of her own people. "The Council believes they are protecting our society by sending you away," she whispered into his mind. "But they do not understand what I have learned from you." "What's that?" Marcus asked, brushing back the silken filaments from her face. Naevia's eyes met his, glowing with an inner light that hadn't been there before. "That protection without growth is merely another form of death. We have been dying slowly for generations, controlling ourselves into extinction." "What will you do?" he asked, sensing her resolution forming. "What I must," she answered, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that carried the weight of decision. "Tomorrow everything changes." Part 5. A Bridge Between Worlds. The departure bay hummed with activity as final preparations were made for Marcus's return journey. His ship, once a twisted wreck, now gleamed under the crystalline lights, repaired with technology beyond human understanding. Under different circumstances, he might have been excited about bringing such advancements back to Earth. Instead, he moved mechanically through the pre-flight checks, his mind still partially entwined with Naevia's. She stood with the council members at a distance, her posture perfect, her expression carefully neutral. Only Marcus could feel the storm of emotion beneath her composed exterior. Theron approached, extending a crystalline data storage device. "This contains navigation coordinates and emergency protocols. The Council grants this technology as appreciation for the cultural exchange." Marcus accepted it with a nod. "Please convey my thanks to the Council for their hospitality. We trust you will represent our encounter accurately to your people," Theron continued, his telepathic voice formal and distant. "With appropriate emphasis on our desire for minimal contact. I'll be sure to mention your perspective," Marcus replied carefully. Theron's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer, searching. "Your influence has caused disruption, human. Yet I cannot deny you have taught us something about ourselves. Whether beneficial or destructive remains to be seen." With that cryptic statement, Theron withdrew, leaving Marcus to complete his preparations alone. The final systems check confirmed what he already knew. The ship was ready, there was no legitimate reason to delay. As Marcus sealed the last cargo compartment, a commotion arose from the council gathering. He turned to see Naevia step forward, separating herself from her people. The council members' agitation was visible even to Marcus's limited telepathic perception, a discord in the usually harmonious field of their collective consciousness. "Before this human departs," Naevia's telepathic voice projected with unusual strength, reaching everyone in the bay, "I wish to address the council's concerns regarding emotional contamination." The eldest council member, a being whose skin had faded to almost translucent pearl, stepped forward. "This matter has been decided, researcher Naevia. Return to your position." "I cannot," Naevia responded, and Marcus felt her resolve solidify. "Because I am no longer the same being who stood before you yesterday." She moved toward Marcus with deliberate steps. Each movement drew gasps of shock from the assembled researchers as she closed the distance between them. "For generations we have believed that our evolution beyond emotion represented progress," she continued, her thoughts broadcast to all present. "We thought ourselves superior for transcending the messiness of feeling." The violet blush that Marcus had come to adore spread across her features as she came to stand before him. "I have learned that we were wrong. Emotion is not primitive, it is essential. Without it, we do not transcend our existence. We merely experience it at a distance." "Naevia," Marcus whispered, feeling her determination but also her fear. "You don't have to do this." "I do," she replied, this thought meant for him alone. "For all of us." Turning back to face her people, Naevia extended her hand toward Marcus, a shocking gesture in a society where casual touch was taboo. "The human Marcus Chen has shown me that connection does not weaken us. It completes us. The emotions I now experience have not diminished my intellect or judgment. They have enhanced my understanding of existence itself." The council members conferred in rapid, private telepathic exchanges. Marcus could feel their confusion and alarm rippling through the chamber. "This contamination is worse than we feared," the elder finally pronounced. "You speak of connection as though it were advancement rather than regression to primitive states." "Test me," Naevia challenged. "Measure my cognitive functions. Evaluate my research contributions since Marcus's arrival. You will find they have improved, not degraded." A murmur of telepathic communication spread through the gathered researchers. Marcus felt something shifting in the collective consciousness, curiosity awakening where there had been only dismissal before. Theron stepped forward unexpectedly. "The data supports Naevia's claim. Her research output has increased by 37% since the human's arrival. The quality of her analysis has deepened." The elder's filaments trembled with agitation. "Correlation is not causation." "Research director, perhaps," Theron conceded. "But it warrants further investigation rather than immediate dismissal." Marcus watched in amazement as Theron, who had been his most vocal opponent, now spoke in defense of Naevia's transformation. The telepathic field in the chamber grew chaotic with competing viewpoints, some fearful, others intrigued. Amid the telepathic debate, Naevia turned to Marcus, her indigo eyes luminous with emotion she no longer tried to suppress. "They are considering," she told him privately. "For my people, this is revolutionary. What happens now?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "Even if they accept your arguments, I'm still supposed to leave." "Perhaps," Naevia acknowledged, "but not alone." Before Marcus could process her meaning, Naevia turned back to address the council. "I propose a modification to our diplomatic protocols," she announced. "I request assignment as cultural ambassador to Earth, to study how controlled reintegration of emotional processing might benefit our society." The elder's disapproval radiated like a physical force. "You wish to abandon your people for this human?" "I wish to serve my people by building a bridge between our worlds," Naevia corrected. "The humans have much to learn from our telepathic sciences, and we have forgotten much that they remember." Theron stepped forward again. "The proposal has merit from a research perspective. We have never had direct observation of human society." The debate continued, but Marcus could feel the tide turning. What had begun as shock was evolving into scientific curiosity, the one motivation powerful enough to overcome the alien's emotional caution. After what seemed an eternity, the elder raised a hand for silence. "The council will permit this experimental diplomatic mission," the elder decreed finally. "Researcher Naevia will accompany the human to Earth as our representative, with regular reports on her findings. If contamination proves detrimental, she will be recalled immediately." Relief flooded through Marcus, mingling with Naevia's barely contained joy in their shared mental space. "I accept these terms," she responded formally, though Marcus could feel her excitement bubbling beneath the words. As the council dispersed to prepare the necessary documents and equipment for Naevia's journey, she turned to Marcus, taking his hands in hers openly. Without hesitation, "You once told me that not all desire leads to destruction," she said, her thoughts warm with affection. "That sometimes it leads to creation." Marcus smiled, squeezing her hands gently. "Are you ready to find out which one this is?" Naevia's answering smile, the first he had ever seen on her face, was like watching a star being born. "I believe we already know," she replied, pressing her forehead to his in the gesture that had become their own. "We have created something new between our worlds. Something beautiful." As they boarded the ship together, Marcus glanced back at the crystalline research station. Theron stood watching them, his telepathic farewell surprisingly sincere. "May your journey teach us all what we have forgotten." The ship's engines hummed to life, and as they rose above the glittering surface of Lunara 9, Marcus felt Naevia's consciousness expand with wonder at the adventure before them. "Where we go now," she whispered into his mind, her hand finding his as the stars spread out before them. "We go together." The silence between them was no longer empty, but filled with unspoken promises and the quiet certainty that in crossing the vast distance between their worlds, they had somehow found their way home.